Hey everybody, Movie Man here. Happy September. Hope everything's going well for you out there in YouTube land. Anyway, today I thought I'd talk about sports movies, in particular football movies, and in particular one football movie specifically. That is the film called Number One, made in 1969, starring Charlton Heston. Now, I'm a fan of well-made football movies. I have to say there haven't been too many of them. I personally still think the best football movie ever made is North Dallas 40. The movie and the book were very, very good. My personal favorite football movie is Paper Lion. Just from, completely different than North Dallas 40, but it's just happens to be my favorite football movie. I know some of you out there are probably Rudy fans. I'm not. There's been some football movies recently, like Draft Day, which was, not too recently, but a few years ago. But the one we're talking about today is, like I said, Number One, and it was made in 1969, directed by Tom Grise, starring Charlton Heston, Bruce Dern, Jessica Walter, Dinah Muldaur, and John Randolph. Now, this is one of the first movies that was made under the new regime at United Artists. Arnold and David Picker's one of their first movies they made for United Artists after it had been bought by Transatlantic. And they liked the idea of combining a Oscar-winning actor like Charlton Heston with a sports movie, specifically football, which was starting to become the national pastime around the time this movie was made. Heston himself saw the role of Ron the Big Cat Catlin as a potential chance to win best actor nod. Unfortunately for Heston, it did not work out that way, but he must have seen something in the role that really attracted him to it. He based his character on a photo of New York Giants quarterback Y.E. Tittle from 1964. It's a very, very famous sports photo, won a Pulitzer Prize, and it shows Tittle on his knees, his balding head. He's got blood trickling down as a result of a very, very hard hit by Pittsburgh Steelers defensive end John Baker. Like I said, it is one of the most famous sports photos of all time. And Heston saw this photo and was so taken by it, he really wanted to base his character on that photo. Heston, in preparation for the role, began working out with a local USC quarterback before moving on to train with New Orleans Saints quarterback Billy Kilmer. Now, Heston plays, like I said, a character named Ron the Big Cat Catlin, who is the quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. Now, for those who know football, knows that when this movie was made, the Saints had only been in existence for 3 years. However, in the movie, Catlin has been playing for 15 years, and the Saints during his time, had won a championship, something which they would not do until the 2000s, but hey, this is Hollywood, so whatever. The movie does feature several real life New Orleans Saints players. If you know football, you'll recognize Doug Adkins, the Hall of Fame player from the Chicago Bears who ended his career with the Saints. You'll see him featured in a couple of background scenes. Now, normally the NFL doesn't usually let Hollywood depict license their real teams in movies. The Saints were one of the few to do it. The Detroit Lions did it for Paper Lion, and the Cleveland Browns would do it later on for Draft Day. Now, Heston, like I said, prep for his work as a quarterback. However, to the honest opinion of many Saints players was, he just did not really look the part. We all know Heston, kind of a, big-chested guy. But in a football uniform and pads, he just got lost. In fact, during filming, he actually broke a rib, which set filming back a little bit. But he did his best. Anyway, the story is a week in the life of Ron Catlin. The beginning of the film starts with them wrapping up their preseason in a losing effort against the Cleveland Browns. Catlin is 40 years old. Like I said, he's been playing for 15 years. And the movie is really about him wrestling with the decision of whether or not to step away or to keep playing. Now, the biggest problem I have with the film is the fact that Heston's character is just an extremely unlikable person. Had he been more sympathetic, I think I would have gotten more involved in what his character was going through. He's selfish. He's self-centered. He treats his wife like garbage. He's just very standoffish, and he's just an truthfully an unpleasant character. And I think that's what hurts the film. Had we been more sympathetic to him, I think the movie would have been better. If you go to a movie like North Dallas 40, we kind of feel for Nick Nolte's character. He's being used and abused by the team, by the system. And he knows he's disposable, but he's doing the best he can to hang on. His character is far more sympathetic and interesting than Heston's is. The first time we see Heston and his wife together, his wife played by Jessica Walter, who's a great actress, a few years away from doing her star-making turn in Play Misty for Me. But the first time we see Heston and Walter together, she picks him up at the game, and he just basically says, "Where the hell were you? What's wrong with you?" kind of a thing. And I'm like, wow, what a jerk. He blows off going to a party with her. He instead goes to a restaurant to kind of, drink by himself and brood. He then gets a call from his former teammate and friend, Richie Fowler, played by Bruce Dern. Dern is actually kind of believable as a former receiver. He does have kind of an athletic build. And in fact, in preparation for their roles, Dern and Heston would jog together every morning before filming, and then show up to filming not having showered because they wanted that sort of worn, sweaty look. But anyway, Heston goes to Dern's house where he's picked up by a friend of Fowler's, Anne, played by Donna Muldaur, a woman who owns a tennis shop. And you can see that right away her and Heston have an attraction. And they sort of tour around Dern's house, Richie Fowler's house, and they lay in bed together, and Heston makes a pass at her, and the evening concludes with their characters kissing. So again, right away he elicits very little sympathy. He's already out there cheating on his wife. Walter's character, she is a successful fashion designer. Actually, Muldaur's character during the film says she once worked for Walter's character. So there's a little bit of history there, but that doesn't go anywhere. During the course of the week, Heston goes on a job interview at a computer company where he basically is told, you better take this job now because at your age, in a year from now, I might not be able to even offer you a job because half the population is under 25, and that's where it's at. So Heston's character is at a crossroads. Does he retire and go into the business world? Does he try hanging on for another year or two? Now, Heston's coach, the coach of the Saints, is played by John Randolph, who does a really good job in this role. He's got that gruff voice. He is very believable as a coach. But he sort of plays Heston. He tells him I think you have 2 or 3 good years left. They're yours if you want them. However, you don't want to do what I say, you're gone. So he sort of toys with Heston's character. Heston's character is also faced with the possibility of being replaced by a quarterback in the Saints roster named Kelly Williams, played by Richard Eakins, who really couldn't find too much out about but he's an African American quarterback, which for 1969 was kind of an unusual thing. There were only two really at the time, Marlon Briscoe and James Harris, but they both played in the AFL. There were at the time no African American quarterbacks in the NFL. They wouldn't really. It really wasn't until the early 70s when Joe Gilliam of the Steelers, James Harris of the Rams, started saying, "Hey, we can play this position too." So to have an African American character as a quarterback in this movie was kind of a nice touch. Would have been nice to maybe plan that element a little bit, but it really just plays on the age factor. Kelly Williams basically says, "Hey, you can't beat the clock, man. You're 40 years old. Tittle couldn't beat the clock, and Graham couldn't beat the clock, and you can't beat the clock. I'm the young guy. I'm hungry. I want this job now." So that's really where the conflict between the two characters comes from. Age. Like I said, it would have been maybe a nice, interesting little subplot about the racial aspect of it, but that's a road that obviously the writers and director didn't want to go down. Like I said, the film was directed by Tom Grise, who had directed Heston in Will Penny, which came out during this filming, while they were filming this movie. Bruce Dern also starred in Will Penny, so there was a connection there. Now, as the film was being shot, Planet of the Apes had been released, which catapulted Heston back into, one of the top draws in Hollywood. However, a short time later, while this movie was being made, Will Penny came out to, basically a commercial and critical failure, which kind of knocked Heston back down. So it's kind of interesting to see an actor's career go up and down in the course of filming another movie. Now, the football scenes were shot with the help of NFL Films, who went to a real Saints Dallas game, which is the game we see at the end. Went to the real Browns Saints preseason game, shot some stuff. You could see Kilmer inserted into certain situations in the real games, which kind of, adds a little bit of believability that, he was in there. But like I said, unfortunately, he just doesn't look the part of an aging NFL quarterback. Now, as the week goes on, Heston's character does sleep with Muldaur's character. He basically comes home and tells his wife, "I slept with somebody," after they had a fight. And she just kind of says, "I don't know what to say. What do you feel like, a conquering hero? Coming home telling me this." Her character, unfortunately, for as good as an actress as Walter is, and she plays a successful fashion designer, she kind of goes back and forth between standing up to Heston, saying, "Hey, I've got a career, I've got a life, why don't you support me?" and goes between that and goes back to sort of being the submissive wife. "I'll do whatever you want me to do. Do you want to quit? I'll quit with you." So her character isn't the best written. Muldaur's character is just there to provide, a love interest. Muldaur is another actress which I really like. She's a very, very beautiful actress. She has this sort of, just the way she speaks and the way her eyes are just sort of seductive. She's just a really good, believable actress in mostly everything that she does. I love the way she was also in one of my other favorite movies, The Swimmer. Very small role, but anytime I see her on screen, she brings a little bit of bit of life to the part into the movie. But once her and Heston's character sleep together, that's all we see of her. He leaves, and she's just kind of there to stare at the empty bed and go, "Okay, that happened." We don't know what happens to her. We're never told what happens to her or shown what happens to her. There's no follow-up with that. So that just kind of goes nowhere, which is another disappointing thing. Now, as the week draws to a close, Heston decides, I'm going to quit. His good friend on the player, one of his good teammates on the team, kind of says, well, come with us to the stadium for the last game. You at least owe us that. So Heston rides on the bus with the team, sitting there going, I'm going to quit, I'm going to quit, I'm going to quit. The Saints get off, they go into the locker room, they get dressed, they go out for warm-ups, and Heston is still sitting there on the bus trying to decide if I want to get off or if I'm going to quit. Well, he decides he's going to play. And they have the season opening game against the Dallas Cowboys. And Heston goes out, and his opening drive against the Cowboys, they score a touchdown. And everybody, goes from booing him to cheering him. His second drive of the game, again, they're doing well until some blocking breaks down and 3 Cowboys crash in on him, leaving him a heaping mess on the field. And the final shot of the game, of the movie, is Heston laying there on the field. We get sort of a helicopter shot as it comes up, and we just see him there alone on the field. His wife and Bruce Dern's character were watching him. They just sort of walk away. She kind of has an indifferent look on her face, kind of cold, like. So that was kind of an odd little thing. Like maybe she really doesn't care about him, or maybe she's just like, okay, that's it, we're done. But we see Heston's body just laying there, and then eventually we see the trainers come out to take care of him, and that's the way the movie ends. It's an interesting concept for a movie, to show a once successful aging athlete making that difficult decision to step away. It's a decision that every athlete faces. When is it time to step away? And when they do they regret it stepping away too soon? Do they regret stepping away too late? Throughout the movie, Heston's character Catelyn is visited by a former teammate who says, I know I wasn't great, but I missed it. I wish I hadn't stepped away. He sees that. He's also confronted with, hey, there might be time to go. You might be too old for this. So the internal conflict that he goes through makes for a good story. Like I said, the biggest thing that hurts this film is that Heston's character, Catelyn, is just absolutely just unlikable. And, it did not result in a Best Actor nomination for Heston, which he kind of thought it would, or hoped it would, before he made the movie. In terms of an overall score out of 4 stars, I would give it 2. Because of I like the fact that they use real footage. I like Dern's character. I like Walter as an actress. I like Muldaur as an actress. I think John Randolph is very good. And this basic premise of the story has promise. Tom Grease does a serviceable job. I know he wasn't, even though Heston had worked with him, I know he wasn't Heston's first choice for the role of director. He kind of felt like as long as Grease stayed out of the way, and just kind of let us, develop the characters ourselves, things would go okay. Anyhow, that's the film number 1. It is one of the more obscure films in Heston's canon. Not a lot of people know about it. It did not do well at the box office. It cost $1 million to make. It only grossed $1 million, so they lost a little bit there. It was made and quickly forgotten. Heston, this film came out towards the end, at the end of the 60s, right after his Planet 8 success, but then right after the Will Penny failure. And Heston would really never go on to be the big box office star he was in the early 60s. He would follow this up with 2 years later making The Omega Man, a movie I happen to kind of think is a fun and funky retelling of Richard Matheson's I Am Legend. He would follow that up with Soylent Green, and then he would sort of follow that up with a string of some disaster films like Earthquake and one of the airport sequels. He would appear in Midway. And then really by the mid to late 70s, he just wasn't an in-demand actor anymore. So this really was at sort of the tail end where his popularity had started to wane. His career had started to sort of wind down. He wasn't as in demand as he once was. But if you're a fan of Charlton Heston as an actor, it's, you want to search this one out. For that reason, it's worth searching out. If you like football movies, certainly it's worth searching out. It is hard to find. I have seen it on Turner Classic Movies. But it's not available on Blu-ray or DVD. I stand corrected. It is available on DVD, but it's very hard to find. You can try looking on Amazon or eBay or whatever. But if you ever happen to come across it, and you want to check it out, check it out. Let me know what your favorite football movies are, and what your least favorite football movies are. And if you have seen this film, drop some comments below. Tell me what you think. Thanks for watching. Thanks for the support. And I will see you at the movies.